Quando eu falo português, não estou apenas falando uma língua. Eu estou falando quem eu sou. Língua é identidade, é cultura, é conforto. Para muitas pessoas, ouvir a sua própria língua muda tudo. Muda como você se sente, se você confia, se você se sente segura e compreendida. Eu cresci no Rio de Janeiro, Brasil, com origens muito simples. Cheguei aos Estados Unidos, eu não falava inglês, nenhuma palavra, mas eu sabia que eu precisava aprender. I taught myself English by listening, practicing, and making a lot of mistakes. Language became my bridge to opportunity. I began my real estate career in the late 90s, servicing a very exclusive clientele in Miami Beach, Florida. And I've lived in Europe, I've lived in Hong Kong, I've lived in so many different places in the United States, and eventually Orange County became home. Across every place I lived, one thing stayed the same. People want to feel understood. I'm fluent in English, Portuguese, Spanish, and I also speak conversational Italian. But this isn't about the language alone. It's about the connection. When someone can express themselves freely, trust changes. Falar a língua de alguém é uma forma de carinho, forma de cuidado. É dizer, eu te vejo. E isso muda tudo.
My background was a little different. I didn't come from a real estate background. I actually have a degree from UCLA in Physiological Sciences. And when I graduated from college, where I was also an athlete at UCLA, I ran track and field and cross country for a couple of years there, and went to work for a physical therapist. And we started working with athletes. We started working with actors. We joined a gentleman who had a contract at Sony Pictures Studios to basically develop training and nutrition programs for actors while they were shooting movies at Columbia and TriStar Pictures. So I was moving in a completely different direction, ended up in the physical therapy and wellness space for about 10 years, and made a decision after my wife convinced me that I should join her in real estate to join the business. Now, not something that I intentionally wanted to do. Never really saw myself being a realtor, but my wife was going to Los Angeles for these training sessions with a very famous real estate coach in the area. And because the traffic's so bad in Los Angeles, she was looking for a carpool dummy. So that's how I got my start in real estate. I started as a carpool dummy. And as we would go to Los Angeles and I would sit in the back of these training sessions, it just struck me. The business that I was in was a difficult business. I had to deal with insurance companies. I had to deal with managed care. We had Medicare contracts. Reimbursements were down, and it was becoming increasingly more difficult to run a business in the wellness space. And after sitting in the back of these rooms, watching my wife build her business and watching these agents and the questions they asked, I just saw huge potential in the real estate industry. And that's when we joined forces. That was about 20 years ago. She convinced me to come aboard, and I basically said, look, I'll come on and I'll kind of run the back end of the business, and that'll free you up to go out and do more of the real estate related activities. And that's exactly what we did 20 years ago. It's been a great partnership. We each have our lanes. We kind of stay in our lane. She's very good at certain things that I just don't do, and I handle a lot of the back end and business development for the company. So it's been an extraordinary journey. It's changed our lives. We've got an amazing lifestyle today. We've been able to spend a lot of time with our children. We've spent a lot of time getting involved in the local community, getting involved with the Chamber of Commerce and local businesses, coaching sports teams, etc. So it's been a fantastic decision, but I have to say one that I made begrudgingly as my wife dragged me into the business.
What led me to become a real estate agent was simply a friend of mine telling me that I would be very good at it. And knowing my personality, what did I say? I said, yes! And then I went on to get my license in Florida. Well, the philosophy that we have, that I take on in this business, is the fact that you really have to love this business to do this business well. It's extremely stressful, and you're dealing with a lot of money and a lot of emotions. They're usually a very dangerous combination. So what happens is that if you do not care, if you do not love, please don't be in this business. I care and I love what I do. That's why I do it every day of my life. I'm constantly doing real estate. It doesn't matter if I am physically at an open house or if I'm on the phone or if I am talking to any of our neighbors or anything like that. Real estate is always on my mind.
Our philosophy really is clients come first. You know, this is an interesting business. From the minute you sign a listing agreement all the way through the close of escrow, it really is just a series of problems that need to be solved. And the business has become much more complex these last couple years than it was 15 to 20 years ago. You know, it used to be just put a sign in the ground and sell a house, and it was pretty simple. But today, you've got to have multiple systems, you've got to have processes, you've got to have these things in place, you've got to have a team. Today we have a full team of people to ensure that the client experience is seamless. And I really think that's been our motto from day one. We want seamless client experience because that's really what clients are looking for today, I think. They're looking for service, they're looking for somebody who can solve problems before they become problems, and they're looking for somebody that can really handle those small details because it can be a very stressful process, whether buying or selling a home. Although there's going to be some stress, we're going to make it as seamless as possible for them throughout the process.
Well, actually, I started way back in Brazil in high school. I started learning computer science, and computer science at that time was something that we never really heard of. This is back in high school. My father told me to learn computers, and at that time we had like no computers. We're not talking about it. But I said yes because that's my personality. My dad wanted me to go to this great school, and he literally took a side job just to be able to pay for my private high school. So I went to this high school and I learned a couple of languages, and it was very interesting because that really made me think outside the box. So very young, I went to work for a very good company in Brazil, an oil company in Brazil, where I dealt with a lot of different personalities, very smart people. And I was in small computer rooms, the CPDs at that time, right? Computers were like the size of this house, and we just had to learn. So I did that. And then when I came to the United States, I went from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil to, my goodness, Minnesota in January. You know what that means. So I changed areas and I needed to be in a completely different environment. So when I came here, I did not speak any English at all, not even a word. So it was very difficult for me, not only physically difficult because of the weather change, which was very hard for me as a Brazilian to take on that snow and the cold weather, but also the fact that everything was different. No language. I did not speak the language. So what I did, besides continue doing what I did in the computer industry, was to learn conversational English. And it's kind of a funny story because I learned English by watching TV. There was something very special about it. It was just not any TV. I really needed to find something that would teach me the right way. So I watched Family Feud, and that's how I learned the English. Why? Because they asked the question 5 times and then they show all the different answers. But it was just like a class. So that's how I actually learned English. I was in the computer industry, and quite honestly, that was not the right profession for me. I'm just warm and caring. I need people and not machines. So I was in Michigan at that time, and I opened up the newspaper, and there was this big advertisement from United Airlines asking, they're looking for Portuguese flight attendants to fly to Brazil. And literally I looked behind me and I said, oh my goodness, they're talking to me. So I literally went from the cold weather in Minnesota to Miami Beach, Florida, and I started flying back home to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And that's how I started my career in the fashion industry. And that is because in Miami and going to Brazil, I could actually bridge the 2 countries by designing swimwear, making the swimwear in Brazil, import them, and I also had a showroom in the Miami Merchandise Mart, and that's where I sold my suits. It was like a wholesale for the bathing suits. I made a lot of money selling Brazilian bathing suits in Miami Beach, Florida. That was a lot of fun. Believe it or not, I have a very creative side to me. My left and my right brains are equally developed. I like to say that. It was a total outlet for my creativity to design swimwear. But again, you needed to sell Brazilian swimwear in America, so it's a little different, right? So I started being very creative with the materials that I used, and I quite honestly started making suits out of neoprene, that material from the surface, right, from wetsuits. And I used to buy them for hardly any money at all in Brazil because it was just the scraps from the wetsuits that they used to make. And I used to buy those and then make the suits and sell them for a small fortune, wholesale. And quite honestly, I didn't know what I was doing, but that's who I am. I just say something and I stick with it. So that was a lot of fun for me to sell the suits. And then that became into another type of business. When I sold the swimwear business, I just started designing high-end shoes. And that was very interesting as well. It was not the very best financial decision because I came from very inexpensively putting a suit together to very expensive shoes. That was not a real good, smart business decision, but I still had a lot of fun, and I produced very beautiful high-end shoes.